Hello, good morning to you, and many thanks for joining us. You're watching Galaxy Today, coming to you from Galaxy Television. My name is Justin Akadonye.
And of course, it's joined by Uche Onyekolije. One morning to you, and welcome to Galaxy Today, being Tuesday, January 21st, 2019. And of course, today we'll be looking at reps whose public hearing on minimum wage has begun. Right, Justin?
Minimum wage, the issue has been on for like months now, because we've been going back and forth the country. That is, the federal government, the state government, and the Labour is still standing its ground. Well, just yesterday, workers booed the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, NGF, Abdul Aziz Yari of Zamfara State, and the Minister of Labour and Product Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, while making their submissions at the House of Representatives ad hoc committee public hearing on the new minimum wage. The general consensus by critical stakeholders at the hearing was that 30,000 naira was affordable and that the issue of revenue formula review was long overdue. But this is even as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, declared in his welcome address that the 30,000 naira being proposed was not even enough. The same Nigerian workers deserve a living wage. The workers who stormed venue of the public hearing in large numbers did not, however, spare Governor Yari and Ngige, as they were both booed throughout their submissions. I'll be looking at the long-running debate on the Nigerian minimum wage. We have guests here in Lagos. We have representatives of Labour. We have Nolge in Oyo State, and also we have the policy analyst in Abuja. And the three guests will be, taking this discourse, to get things right. Before we do the introductions of our guests, let's see if we can get highlights of the public hearing of yesterday.
This new bill and amendments contained therein were arrived at after consultations by the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage, which was constituted by me in November 2017.
This Senate should give it a very expeditious passage, and that requires suspension of Order 79 so that we take the first and second reading immediately.
The minimum wage is increased, the levels of the standard of living of the citizens also appreciates.
Nigerian workers are suffering. I ask myself a question: what could 18,000 do in feeding a family of 2, not to talk of a family of 4? And I see nothing.
I'm not surprised, because this is in line with his promise during his campaign to become the president of this country in the year 2015. He promised that he was going to better the lives of Nigerians.
Mr. President, I was just calculating here when the leader said this is the good thing that APC has brought. APC has brought nothing. This is not what the people expected from them.
Now, the other issue that also should draw our attention is the ability of states to pay. I would like to commend our colleagues for insistence that any state that's committed to paying will definitely pay. So that means that they may have to make sacrifices in some areas.
We lay down the period within which the minimum wage should be reduced, but it has always been observed more in fixed, such that people who depend on salaries, whose income are fixed, are at the mercy of inflation.
I want to use the opportunity to congratulate all of us, because we're going to be part of this. The minimum wage, like the leader stated, is supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. But of course, we knew what happened and the tension that the refusal or inability of the parties involved to refuse this deal nearly throw this country into.
You will pay, I think that is a penalty or a kind of their interest agreeing on the sum that makes the very
Honorable James Faleke, and the public hearing will hold on Monday unfailingly. Well, it is hoped that the committee will report to us on Tuesday, and by the grace of God, we'll pass it on Tuesday, and then we can close the session until after elections.
All right, welcome back. It's still Galaxy. Today you just saw snippets of the highlights of the public hearing on the new minimum wage as convened by the House of Representatives. We have guests here, but just before we do that, this program is always interactive. Feel free to interact with us on social media using the hashtag Galaxy Today on Facebook, Instagram, on Twitter as well. You can also send SMS if you have questions or if you have contributions concerning the new minimum wage public hearing that is ongoing. We have Comrade Chris Onyeka, is the Deputy General Secretary of the United Labour Congress, joining us here in Lagos. Good morning to you, Chris.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, it's good to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here again.
Okay, this minimum wage thing has been back and forth for months now, and it feels like the only way Labour knows how to fight is to go on strike. But it feels like the strike isn't going now, that this whole thing is falling on 27,000, yet it still feels like it's not forthcoming. You represent the ULC, and there's a whole lot in your mind concerning this case. Let's start with what your mind is all about, your own thoughts about this whole thing.
It has not dragged on for months. It has dragged on for years.
Years, okay.
2015, we were supposed to have done this, concluded by 2016 it to come into effect. But unfortunately, we are dealing with a leadership that is not very sensitive to the plights of Nigerian workers. If you understand the place of wage for a worker, then you would know that anything that surrounds it must be treated with dispatch and urgency. And though it is also not surprising, because remember that it took this government how many months to appoint ministers, then you will know that doing simple things, is not the strength of this particular government. And so we have never in our history of engagement with government over minimum wage had it so rough that at every stage of the engagement, we will have to threaten, we have to go on strike, we have to bang the table for them to be able to listen and do the simple thing. Even to get them started was a problem. Personally, I wrote letters from 2015. I've been writing letters to the presidency on the issue of minimum wage. To get them started was a problem. When eventually they had to get started, it was because they foisted on Nigerians this present 145 naira petroleum price. Okay, and so Nigerians had to go on strike. And then when we went on strike, the 16-man technical committee was set up. Okay, one of the outcomes of that 16-man technical committee was the setting up of the National Minimum Wage Review Committee, the tripartite committee. Okay, and then that was set up in November, inaugurated by the president in November of 2017. Before that committee sat, we also had to start writing letters again, threatening. It took them 4 months to sit, to have their first sitting, and at every stage of it. So it is the insensitivity of the people that occupy the corridors of power to the need, okay, to take care of the welfare of Nigerian workers and Nigerian masses that has allowed this thing to drag on unnecessarily for this number of years. It is, they say that when you carry another man's coffin, another man's corpse, it's like you're carrying firewood. But when it is yours, or one that is close to you, then you understand the gravity of the situation. They do not understand the gravity of the situation. They do not have the feeling that Nigerian people, Nigerian workers have. And that is why they have been behaving the way they are behaving.
Okay, we'll come back to you now, but I want to get Jide Ojo's, comment concerning what we're looking at this morning. Many thanks for joining us on Jidojo. He is a policy analyst and he used to be with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. Thanks for joining us on Galaxy today. My question would be, yesterday at the resumption of the public hearing, Nigerian workers were vehement, insisting that, whatever the state government is saying is likely not the right picture, saying about they cannot really pay that particular amount. In your opinion, looking at the realities of the present times in Nigeria and the talk of 27,000 naira, does that really make much sense to you, in as much as the Speaker of the House of Representatives is even saying that 30,000 naira is not even the way to go?
It's a very dicey one. It's a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea. We know we are coming from 18,000 to 27,000. And when you look at the inability of many of the governors to even pay the 18,000, one would say, what is the desirability of having an increase in the minimum wage? But then, like the NLC president Ayuba Waba said, as of 2011, when that 18,000 minimum wage was approved, it's equivalent to $150 per month. Today, it's come down because of devaluation and inflation to $50 per month. And that is what some people will get per day in other climes. Although one should compare apple with apple and oranges. But in reality, whether we're talking 30,000 or 27,000, none of these two can actually improve the living standard of Nigerian workers. And really, if you fail to do the needful, we will not be able to curb corruption. Because, as it were, what I will always find is level. If there was a tripartite committee that sat for close to a year, from October 2017 to last quarter of last year, and where the governors were represented, and from what the NLC president said, at least they consulted with, out of the 36 state governors, 30 of them agreed to pay this 30,000 minimum wage. So why are they denouncing the memorandum of understanding or agreement that were voluntarily signed by the three parties? I think that is that marks of mischief and lack of trust and confidence that the presidency have shown. The bottom line is that this minimum wage will not be due for review until another 5 years. I know that NSC, as part of their demand at the public hearing yesterday, was saying that it should even be brought forward to 4 years. But let's look at, if we go by 27,000, a minimum wage 27,000 for the next 5 years will even be impoverize the workers a lot more. We should be forward-looking and believing that the economy will improve. We cannot be enslaved by the present condition and feel that this is how things will continue to be. Things are going to improve, and I think the 30,000 naira minimum wage being demanded by labor is fair. Don't also forget that they came down from the Olympian Act of 56,000 naira, which was what they initially demanded. So they've trimmed off 26,000 to agree to 30,000. And I must commend the presidency and the state governor too for also moving from the initial 24,000 to 27,000. But the bottom line is that I believe 30,000 is not too high to pay a minimum worker, as the minimum amount to pay workers. Don't also forget that the president has said that this minimum wage will still, there will be a sliding rule. So it's not like everybody will get the absolute 30,000 minimum wage. As you go up the ladder, you get less of the minimum wage. So it's not like everybody gets an absolute 100% increase on their salaries. And as we have been told, about 5 states are already paying over and above the 18,000 minimum wage. Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Edo, Lagos, and I think 1 or 2 other states are already paying. So 30,000 is not too high an amount to pay a worker who has worked for 30 days in a month.
I've just gone by. We'll still come back to you. I want to get the position of Labour right now with all of this. Now, what is Labour saying? Because other stakeholders, such as the private sector and the small scale and medium enterprise, agreed yesterday in their presentations to pay 30,000 naira per month as minimum wage. Okay, so right now, with all of this back and forth, what is the stand of Labour? Because before now, Labour has insisted that they would stay at 30,000. Now, with this 27,000 naira, now what are we seeing, or what are we expecting to see or hear from Labour?
It is unfortunate that we have to get to a public hearing. We've never had anything like public hearing in a minimum wage legislation. In 2011, it was done in 1 day, and nobody went to public hearing, because what was agreed in the tripartite committee was what was transmitted to the National Assembly. It was a fait accompli. So for the federal government to have gone through the back door to smuggle in an illegal 27,000, it has become needful that Labour has to mobilize and go to the National Assembly to engage the other parties at the legislative level. But like you said, that the organized private sector has insisted that they are paying 30,000 naira, because that 30,000 naira was organized private sector figure. It was never our figure. Like it was said, the organized labor figure was 65,000 naira. And we came down from that 65,000 to agree, when organized labor pleaded with us vehemently and said, please accept 30,000 naira. We are willing to pay this. If you can come down, so we'll break the deadlock. And the labor movement, being a responsible movement, decided to listen to them and agreed with them. And the federal government was also, the government side were also brought into it. And there was an agreement. And that was why the tripartite committee came up with that figure, 30,000 naira. What federal government has done in smuggling in 27,000 means that it does not respect the tripartite committee, which is set up and spent so much on. Okay, something that happened over a period of 1 year, even more than that, and yet they do not have regards to that. They do not have regards to industrial relation practice, international conventions and standards. They do not have regards to their own laws. They believe in impunity, and that is very, very wrong. And so we are left, the options we are left with are very, very clear to us, because we have made it known to the federal government. 30,000 naira or nothing. And we are prepared to defend 30,000 naira. Whatsoever the National Assembly is going to come up with should be nothing less than 30,000 naira. We've been discussing with them before now, and we have that assurance from them that they are going to do the needful. Even whether we went there or we didn't go there, it wasn't going to make any difference. They have given us that assurance that 30,000 naira is what is going to come out, because they are responsible men and women at the National Assembly. They understand the issues. The 30,000 naira that is an offer. It's not a living wage. 1,000 naira a day cannot take care of anybody, and all of us know that. All
right, Jide Ojo, thanks for standing by. I want to get your perspective since you have worked with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. There have been talks concerning this issue of a minimum wage, and that it may lead to strike. In a submission yesterday, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, told stakeholders that any increase in workers' wages would not translate into inflation. Looking at the macroeconomic indices and all what it is signifying right now, what's your angle on this minimum wage vis-a-vis inflation?
Well, I think trying to hide under the fact that a minimum wage will cause inflation is begging the question. The bottom line is that this is an International Labour Organization convention that the workers' wages and salaries should be reviewed every 5 years. And whether we have a wage increase or not, there is bound to be inflation. And I'm not sure that adding about 10,000 naira to the salary of a worker will cause an astronomical or spiral inflation. As he said in economics, all things being equal, all things will never be equal. The bottom line is that we have to increase our production capacity if we want to deal with inflation. Once you are able to diversify the economy and you are able to raise your production level, whatever inflationary trend will be curbed. Don't also forget that while many of the governors are saying that they are not able to pay and that there should be a review of the revenue sharing formula, which is actually a very good request, but to do a review of the revenue sharing formula at this point is almost impossible. I know for sure that unless there is possibly a constitutional amendment or another law to review the extant revenue sharing formula, that may not, it's not something you can deal with administratively. And I'm very sure that if government will concede to reviewing the revenue sharing formula in favor of the states, there will have to be devolution of powers from the exclusive legislative list to concurrent legislative list in order to match, because the federal government will not want to let go, holding on to those exclusive legislative lists and then devolving more resources to the states while they still have to take care of the few areas, barely 22 areas that is under concurrent legislative list, when the federal government will be dealing with about 48 items on the exclusive list. So it's not going to work that way. So more pointedly, I don't believe the argument that increasing workers' salary at this point will cause any spiral or galloping inflation. There will be inflation because of a lot of political spendings. We are in the period of campaigns. There is a lot of money being spent on campaigns. So that in itself can cause inflation without even workers' salary being increased. So it's not a very good enough reason to say you will not increase workers' salary.
Talked about the revenue sharing formula, which cannot really be changed anytime soon, except you talked about devolution of power and all of that. But my question right now would be internally generated revenue for the state government, because most of them are not even hitting bottom line. You know, looking at all of that, some people have opined that if we talk about maybe cutting cost of governance by most of those state and federal government agencies, it would help, you know, in maybe alleviating this issue for workers.
Well, I agree with those who are of that school of thought that if we cut the cost of governance, there will be enough resources to pay workers minimum wage. Right now, we have a security vote that no governor accounts for, and that is in billions of naira. Then we have many of these governors who are complaining of inability to pay minimum wage, who are chartering flights to come to Abuja virtually every week and paying tens of millions of naira on those chartered flights. There are running costs in state houses, in government lodges that we can do away with in order to free resources for the payment of this minimum wage. I think the president did the right thing by setting up the Bismarck-Rumali committee to look into how the government can source revenue to pay this minimum wage when it's eventually passed into law. And I think the state government should also look inward and see how they can, reduce the cost of governance in their states in order to be able to pay the minimum wage when it eventually comes becomes an act of parliament.
Joined us from Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. He is a policy analyst and he was with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. Many thanks. We'll be going to Ibadan in a short while. But just to remind viewers that you can be part of this conversation, feel free, like I said before, to send us SMS if you have questions for our guests here in Lagos and in Ibadan, or if you have a comment or a contribution. You can also do that on social media using the hashtag Galaxy Today. Chris, I want you to still maybe hammer on what Jide just talked about, because Labour is insisting that there will be no inflation. Even the development analyst just told us the same thing. But some people still believe that once salaries have been increased, the market women, will be quick to, increasing their own prices.
That is not true. We've said that over and over, and empirical analysis over time, has shown that minimum wage increase does not in any way lead to inflation. Inflation in Nigeria is cost-pushing inflation. Okay. It's based on cost and not on demand. Okay? And when you look at most of our manufacturing entities, their warehouses are filled with unsold inventories. And now what happens when you increase minimum wage is that those inventories begin to go down. Okay? And that is a plus to the manufacturing entities. That is a signal to those industries to manufacture more, to employ more people. It raises up economic activities. And so you find out that the argument, that it leads to inflation is baseless. It's not scientifically based, because we have done an empirical analysis, scientific analysis on this over the years. During the last, the 2011 increase in minimum wage, it never led to inflation. It was very, very clear. I was debating that with somebody on television again, and he was saying, giving the excuse that there was a lot of money in the system. That was why it didn't happen. But the most important thing that it didn't happen, like I have said, I read economics. That was my first degree, and I read economics in second degree, and I know what I'm talking about. That the inflation in Nigeria is essentially cost-push inflation. It's not demand pull. It's only when you have demand pull inflation that you could begin to worry about what is going on, about increasing minimum wage becoming inflationary. That is for that. And so it is very, very clear. In fact, for any economy that is under a depression, like in our own case, we are under a stagflation. What you need, one of the things you need, one of the keys to driving the economy out of recession is increasing the minimum wage. Look at the structure of spending of the average worker. The structure of spending of the average worker is that he goes to patronize made in Nigerian goods. He is not the one that goes to Dubai for shopping. It is not the Nigerian worker that goes to London to Harrods to shop. He patronizes the tailor on the next street, the shoemaker on the other side. I wear made in Nigerian shoes, made in Nigerian sandals, made in Nigerian clothes. If he increase my salary, that is where he goes to. He goes to the basic things, that stimulates the economy. The organized private sector understands that. And that is why they insist that they can pay 30,000 because it's going to favor them. And that is why they are the ones that wear the shoe. They know where it pinches. It's only the state governors and the federal government that is playing politics with the lives and livelihood of Nigerians. And that is very, very unfortunate.
Okay, I'd like us to look at what was earlier mentioned during the forum that happened yesterday, saying that about 30 states agreed to it, but 6 states are still like they cannot afford it. You and I know that 30,000 really cannot do a thing, but I mean, it's a step forward. Now, for such states that said they cannot afford it, what's your opinion to them?
The fact of affordability has been debated over the years, and we know that it's not affordability. It is willingness. It is not capacity, it's willingness. It's for people to remove selfishness from governance. Understand that the resources of the state does not belong to the individuals that occupy the seats of power. That the resources that belong to the state actually belongs to the people. Nigerian workers and masses are the sovereign. And if we are the sovereign, it means that we hold power. We are the owners of the state, not the individuals. And if they understand that, the key should be to appease, to satisfy, to look at the welfare of the sovereign, of the people that are out there. And so I think is a misconception or a lack of adequate understanding of what governance should be. That governance should impact the welfare of the people. That once you are able to satisfy the people, and the people are able to, that productivity will increase. And when productivity increases, that the economy of that particular state or the nation will improve. If there is that understanding of the key role that labor plays in every economy, in every society, then those governors won't be saying things like that. Like like the man from Abuja said, most of the governor charter flights, we know that because our members are there. They charter flights to Abuja. Look, some of the state governors budgeted on the average 5 million naira for food alone on monthly basis for themselves. The president budgeted on the average 7 million naira for himself and his family for every month for food alone. We're talking about food alone for himself and his family. And then the governors about 5 million. Look, go through their budgets. If you look at what they have budgeted for themselves, and so are they saying that they have a different stomach from the stomach of Nigerian workers? Are they saying that the kind of food they eat is from the moon? It's probably manna, the one that the angels eat. It's not ordinary food.
All right, Chris, we'll come
We
back
are the
to
same
you.
people, human beings.
Okay, let us bring Ibadan into this conversation. We have Comrade Titi Lolashodo standing by. He is the chairman, National Union of Local Government Employees, NOLGE, or your state chapter. Many thanks for joining us on Galaxy today, Comrade Titi Lola. Let us hear the point of view of NOLGE on this particular issue, given all the report we've heard or we've seen, and the stakeholders and people voiced out yesterday. What is NOLGE saying right now? Issues connecting with Ibadan. We'll take a quick break. Let's take that report again on the public hearing that happened yesterday in Abuja as convened by the House of Representatives, and we're still expecting your feedbacks in a moment. To join us again.
The exclusive legislative list as it does, labor, including trade unions, industrial relations, conditions, safety and welfare of labor, industrial disputes, prescribing a national minimum wage for the federation or any party thereof, and industrial arbitration. Equally pertinent are other vital constitutional provisions which highlights our onerous.
Show the difference between the power of the people and the people in power. To all of us, I say thank you very much. And luta continua.
Is agreed on. Because whatever amount is agreed on will have consequential effect upstairs. You must move people upstairs. Because having moved the lowest person from 18,000 to 27,000, you have encroached on a bigger level. And once you encroach on bigger levels, you move them up. And they get more money.
It's only at the level of 25,000 naira to the workers. So now we have to do more work together with the National Assembly to make an upward review of what is already before the National Assembly. Because indeed, what has been approved and conveyed to the National Assembly is 27,000 naira per month.
Revenue of government. We cannot also be blind to the fact that all economic indices indicate that even the 30,000 naira minimum wage the labor is asking for is not enough to sustain
against the workers in any way. In any way. Therefore, our submission, Mr. Speaker, will be here with you soon so that it will help you to know where we are and what we can be done.
All right, welcome back. It's still Galaxy. Today, that was a high point of the public hearing yesterday on the new minimum wage. We have a message right now. This one says, if the federal government cannot pay the agreed 30,000 naira, then the only way is to vote out the government that doesn't care for its workers. Aka Khan Jr. All right, let's see if we can take Ibadan once again. Comrade Titilola Shodo, thanks for standing by. Before the break, I wanted to get your position on the new minimum wage.
On the same page with organized labor on this matter of the minimum wage, we deem it insensitive, callous, and insincere of public hearing on security vote, for instance. We know that the governors take more, even the poorest of states, the governors don't take less than 500 million naira in 30 days as security votes. And we even hear of some states where they take over 1 billion naira in 30 days. Yet some people are now pushing for a public hearing. There is no public hearing no public hearing on the expenditure in the various state houses. No public hearing when they charter aircraft for all sorts of reasons. But when it the Nigerian worker, they are finding all sorts of excuses, delays, and holes why this should not happen. Labor is resolute, and we continue to insist on 30,000 naira, nothing less. It is even surprising that the organized sector is agreeing to 30,000 with not government. People, government offices doing nothing. It is workers who do all the work, feeding fat on the fat of the land, who are now claiming that 30,000 naira they cannot afford. We know they can.
From our end in Ibadan, or your state, many thanks, Comrade Titilola Shodo, for your input today. He is the chairman of the National Union of Local Government Employees. Chris, I asked what we were expecting from Labour. The reason why I asked that, because there's been lots of protests, lots of agitations, and lots of reactions. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate here now, but are we looking at another round of strikes soon?
If 30,000 naira is not given to Nigerian workers, United Labour Congress of Nigeria, in a meeting with NLC and TUC on December 20th in Lagos here, the presidents of the three labor centers were there. I was the secretary of that particular meeting. We agreed, and we issued a communique, which we also sent to the federal government. We agreed not to engage this government again until 30,000 naira was transmitted to the National Assembly. And we outlined what we were going to do. One of those things we said we will do was that we were going to go on a nationwide sensitization campaign on the 8th of January, which we have done. And we said after that, if nothing happens, that we would then embark on a nationwide strike without warning. That was the agreement. And United Labour Congress of Nigeria is still committed to that agreement. That was why we refused to be involved in the meeting of January 4th. We refused to be involved in it. We knew it was not going to yield fruits. And we were proven right by that. And that was why we also refused to be involved in some other engagements until we go back to the agreements. And so we are committed. We are still discussing with our sister labor centers if they are still genuinely committed to giving Nigerian workers, and I said that with all manners of responsibility, if they are still genuinely committed to the struggle for 30,000 naira as a national minimum wage. United Labour Congress of Nigeria is still committed to our agreement that as soon as we agree, in conjunction with civil society organizations, we will embark on a nationwide strike without further warning to Nigerians. It means that people may wake up one morning and find out that road transport workers are no longer working. And the implications of that also would mean that the agreement INEC signed with road transport workers would be nullified by force majeure. What the implications would be that you go to the bank, the bank may not open. The implications would be that probably you will not be able to fly. The goods in the port will not come out. The implications will be that the railways will not function. The teachers will not go to school. And all those and all those and all those. Sorry that you may wake up without any warning. And that happens.
But sorry to butt in there, but looking at the effect of strike now, I know we are fighting a just cause for, I mean, labor needs to be paid. Well, you have to be well rewarded. But do you not think that this strike has a way of affecting labor more than its costs?
Strikes, like I've said before, strike is always the last weapon that we deploy. We are not happy deploying that instrument. It's very costly to us. It gives a whole lot of force at the leadership level, a whole lot of trouble, a whole lot of tension. We try to avoid it. That is why we have given this government up to this nearly 3 years and thereabout, to do the right thing concerning the national minimum wage. And so strike is costly to everybody. And so it is not something we're happy to wield. But if it becomes necessary, then we will not refuse to use it. It's just like people going to war. When it becomes inevitable, we cannot run away from that. If that is the only thing that this government understands, if that is the only thing that they can hear, then we should be prepared to wield it and wield it effectively.
All right, Jojo Brown from Portiscom in Yobe State sent him this one. He's asking, or maybe this is like a rhetorical question. He says, please, will you furnish me with the reason why governors are claiming that they don't have enough money to pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage upon all their unnecessary spendings? I don't know if he's asking.
Yeah, he's very, very correct. Because you cannot, if you go, this is some of the state houses on your own, personally, this is some of the state government houses, and you see the waste, the consumption. The people there are swimming in unbridled consumption. And they tell Nigerian workers that they can't pay 30,000 naira. It's an insult. It's an insult to anybody that knows what goes on in the state governments.
So what is Labour doing to review, seeing that you said that what allocation they have for feeding, for some is 5 million.
Yes, every
the
month.
president is 7 million.
7 point something million. 98 million naira per annum. That's what is in this year's budget.
Okay, so can that not be reviewed? Do you not think that that is overly, is not too much? It's
too much. That is when we talk about cost of governance. We have engaged this government over and over, not just this government, all the governments have. We've engaged them on the cost of governance. It's the labor movement that has thrown up the issue of cost of governance. That what these people, their salaries, their convoys, their travels, their newspapers, their furniture allowance, their dress allowance, that there is no need for all this. We need to cut all these things down. Let us place these people. Let us place the president and the governors on minimum wage. Let us place everybody on minimum wage and let us see how they respond. Let us end the same thing. Are we not individuals? Are we not human beings? And so we've been talking about this. You see, it's unfortunate that when it comes to worker salary, a lot of people begin to crawl out of their different holes to begin to talk about inflation, to begin to talk about cost of governance, to begin to talk about all those issues. You will find a lot of armchair economists coming out to tell you all manners of stories. But nobody will talk when all these other issues are there. But worker salary, everybody believes he's a judge when it comes to worker salary. But this is an existential question. The worker salary is an embodiment of his livelihood. It's what makes him a human being. That money that comes in is what you contribute. It's part of what you contribute to your society, to your neighborhood. The meeting that you attend in your neighborhood is from that money you contribute. The school fees of your children. You don't have any other job. That's your work. You do not have any other company that pays you. That's your work. It's your salary. And so when people understand this, they should be ashamed coming out from their holes to come and put their mouth over worker salary. We will not allow people to reduce minimum wage to all these arguments, all these basal arguments. That is wrong.
Well, a school of thought would say that there's not a better time than now to press home your demands and all of your prayers concerning this minimum wage, specifically this particular election year-end period, and the elections being barely 2 weeks or thereabout from now. So what is Labour doing concerning this? Before the elections hold, is there any firm statement Labour is making on this particular issue?
Yeah, that is why I told you that if the other Labour centers are genuinely concerned, are genuinely interested in it, we have mapped our strategies before now on what to do. Okay? The election may be impacted negatively if we're still committed to our original agreement. But we cannot go it alone. Most of our members are actually earning above the minimum wage, as it were. Most of our members are earning above the minimum wage. And so we are not the primary people that are actually affected by this discussion. But as workers, our constituency is workers everywhere. Wherever you are, as far as we are concerned, you are part of our constituency. And so we are prepared. So if they are committed as we are committed to it, then we will do the needful before this election. There may not be election if we're committed to what we agreed. Yes, if we're committed to what we had agreed.
There may not be election.
Yes, because we are the ones that will organize the election. And so if we decide to withdraw our services, we're not slaves. So if I stay at home and tell you that I won't come out, that I won't do my work, if I don't do my work, it means that nobody will do it, because you're not going to recruit anybody from the moon to come and do the work.
Okay, finally, Chris, let me ask you now, to the average, person who has his own small business, who just maybe have a small stall or a small shop at the market, and you're talking about minimum wage, how can you explain to him, how does it really affect him?
Yeah, like I said before, one is that the minimum wage is a wage floor, is the least. A country sits down and says, this is the lowest a citizen can earn, no matter the nature of work you do, across board.
Okay.
And now people can pay more than that. Now, how does it affect him? Now, when you pay increased minimum wage, the worker receives an increase, say by 50%. If he was earning 18,000, he now receives 30,000. He's earning 12,000. Now, it means 12,000 more, nominally. 12,000 more to spend. And then he goes to that man that owns a shop inside the market. And now, instead of buying 1 tin of milk, he buys 2 tins of milk. Now, instead of buying 1 pint of gari, he buys 1.5 pint of gari. Now, instead of sewing one inferior clothes, instead of depending on the Bendam boutique, he goes to the tailor and cuts 1 yard or 1 trouser length of material. That is an increase. That is an increase, in the income of the shop owner. And now, increased income to the shop owner means that he will go back to his supplier and place some more order for new supplies. And then his supplier goes to the manufacturer or wherever he gets his sources and places more order. What happens is that the economy itself rests up. Unlike when you increase the salary, when you increase the income of the rich men, of the politicians, they go to Dubai and shop. So we export the multiplier outside instead of internally. When you increase the minimum wage of workers, the multipliers are felt inside. And when the multipliers are felt inside, the economy benefits from it. That is the difference. And that is why an average Nigerian should be interested in the minimum wage. If an average worker, like yourself, you're a worker, I know that each and every one of you has like 4 or 5 persons that is dependent. I'm not talking of your immediate family. There are other people that are dependent on your salary. And so when your salary is increased, what does it mean? What does it mean to those people? You spend more on them. And you even bring in more people into the chain of people that you help. And then the goodies are spread around, the welfare are spread around. And that is why it makes sense in every other society to ensure that workers, the salary of workers, would actually take them home. 30,000 naira even cannot take us home. Talk less of 27,000. We will not agree we will not accept 27,000 naira. If other people are trying to compromise on the figure that we agreed, United Labour Congress of Nigeria will never compromise on that figure. We are truthful and honest to Nigerian workers and Nigerian masses. We will not deceive anybody. We will not say one thing in the front and do another thing at the back.
Okay.
That's our commitment.
I just want us to just really look into this. I mean, there are some strikes we've had in the past that after spanning for 2 to 3 days or probably a week, you get to see people coming out and like, we need to survive.
Yes, yes.
So how do you intend to address that?
Yeah, strikes. You know, if you study the dynamics of strike, you will understand that it also has its own elasticity. Okay? Now, when you understand that elasticity, that was why in 2012, we decided to give Saturday and Sunday. Okay? And we're going to start on Monday. So as to allow people, you know, to breathe in and breathe out. And Monday we start again. But within that period, something happened. Now, but this time, we're going to manage the strike. That's the only thing I will tell you. This time we're going to manage the strike in such a way. We have organized strikes in some establishments on Saturdays and Sundays because they were waiting for us to stop the strike on Saturday and Sunday so that they can continue the activities. But we were there on Saturday, we were there on Sunday. It happened. It has happened. We have run it in many organizations, and it worked. We're also going to employ all our experiences in organizing strike, in managing whatever we agree to do. Whatever we agree to do, remember, that's what I'm saying. Whatever we agree to do eventually, we have also put in place strategies to manage them effectively. Nigerians are in this with us, and we believe that they will cooperate because they know that this struggle is a struggle for them and for Nigerian workers.
Thank you so much, Chris. This final message just came in. Did they do public hearings before increasing their budget? That's the National Assembly. You didn't. You just left it unanimous, anonymous rather. You didn't say who you are. I must say a very big thank you to all of you who have been part of this conversation. Let's keep the conversation flowing on social media. Remember, the hashtag is Galaxy Today. Minimum wage affects just about every person in Nigeria. Many thanks to Chris Onyeka, Deputy General Secretary, United Labour Congress. Many thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
My pleasure, as always.
Thank you so much.
God
and of
bless.
course, a big thanks to our guests all the way from Ibadan. We had comrades Titilola Sodo, the chairman of Norje, Oyo State, and from Abuja, Jide Ojo, a policy analyst. We want to say thanks to, particularly to our guests in Ibadan, although we couldn't take you much because of signal, but we want to appreciate you. And for those who sat back to enjoy this program, a big thanks. We'll make it a date same time again tomorrow when we'll be looking at health. I am Uche Onyekoluji. Have a wonderful Tuesday.
And I'm Justin Akadanya. Many thanks for being a part of the show. We return with health tomorrow. Bye for now.